Welcome to Lisa's Changing Perceptions. We'll be going live in
Why
35
does my hair always
seconds.
look better at home than when I see it on the Jumbotron? I look in the mirror and I'm
Looks
like, okay,
fine.
hair's good. And then I get here and I'm like,
I say the same thing
said the
about
bald
my
man.
about my hair. All right, going live in exactly 10 seconds.
You almost lost your touch.
Welcome to Lisa's Changing Perceptions. Lisa is the creator of Changing Perceptions. Through life experiences, she has discovered that we all suffer internal wounds that guide us. We live in a society that puts a label and expectation on everything and everyone. So many are in constant battle with themselves, never winning the war of feeling good enough. Lisa's Changing Perceptions is a show that offers tools and guidance that will assist you in discovering you and unlocking the chains of pain that bind you. You can reach Lisa at www.lisaschangingperceptions.com or lisaschangingperceptions@gmail.com, or just give her a call at 262-573-7055. Of course, Lisa's Changing Perceptions brought to you through the financial support of our good friends over at Natural Therapy Wellness Center. Check them out at www.mchenrymassage.com or give them a call at 815-385-8190. Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning, Kent. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. Good morning, everybody. I'm Lisa with Lisa's Changing Perceptions. I'm a self empowerment coach, diplomaed hypnotherapist, and certified NLP practitioner. And we come here every week to help you to discover new ways that might work for you. Today, I am so excited, and everybody knows. Real quick. Kent, tell me again because I'm senile. Um, the downloads are being prepared, and we expect them to be available on the site by
Yes, we hope to launch them on Valentine's Day,
perfect.
February the 14th.
Okay, thank you. I I had a little mental moment. So I'm very excited to say that the first three will be available, and we have already recorded the fourth, and maybe today we're going to do a fifth and the sixth. We'll see how the day goes. So anyway, just all those of you that we've been telling, they'll be available for home use if you want to work with your own self hypnosis, self relaxation, self reconnection. There'll be different downloads for different topics, but the first three, knock on wood, should be available February 14th. So thank you for that. And today's the day. I've been telling everybody I have the beautiful, wonderful Barbara Decker here, and I'm going to have her tell you a bit about her organization so that I don't botch it. But I've been letting you all know she's been coming. I met Barbara by the guidance kind of weird way that I meet people. And I talked to her, and I was very open that way. I talked to her. It was incredibly emotional, and I got all emotional about my own BS because Barbara's energy is just very accepting, and very calm and non-judgmental. And she has a fabulous story, and with her fabulous story, she has created a fabulous thing for others to get some. I realize that there's places, but to me, what she does is something that is a difficult thing to find and so many people need. And it's also something that very few people talk about because there's not others who necessarily understand it within their social circle. And Barbara offers them a place to voice that, to be accepted, and to be with other people who are struggling or dealing with the same things that they're dealing with. So I will not babble on much longer because I want her to have as much time as possible. And Barbara, you are muted if you want to unmute.
Yes, that was
There we go.
deliberate.
Welcome, Barbara. And I'm going to the listeners won't know what to do when my mouth is closed as much as it will be today. I'm going to kind of hand you the show. And first off, let's start off with introducing yourself and kind of letting people know about your organization and how to reach you. And we're going to reiterate that again at the end of the show, how to reach you. And then we're going to kind of hear your story a little bit, whatever you feel and you've seen. Welcome.
Okay. So, like Lisa said, my name is Barbara Decker, and I am the mom of a person who has an addiction. My youngest son, Eric, spent 8 years deep in drug addiction. He is now 3.5 years in recovery.
Yay.
But that's kind of not really part of the story. That's a lovely thing for me, but it isn't part of how I came to be doing the work that I'm doing here. So when Eric started using drugs, he was experimenting with pot and psychedelics, and I didn't like it, but I wasn't alarmed by it. I thought this is the kind of thing that kids do as they're, spreading their wings, they're pushing back on authority. He's 18 years old and smoking pot and taking a psychedelic now and then didn't seem so outrageous, except that for Eric, it started a real downward spiral. And he started this about 18 years old. And when I realized what was happening, there was no determination as to whether he had a problem with drugs or he had developed a mental illness. Because for young men anyway, I'm not sure about for girls, but for guys, often mental illness emerges around the age of 18. So there were a lot of years where my entire focus was what's wrong with Eric and what can I, as his mother, do to fix him? And I shopped, from place to place, doctor to doctor, everybody that I could think to talk to. I went to Al-Anon and Nar-Anon, my own therapists, several of them, and it was like the sum focus of my life is, how could this have happened? How could it be that I did the things I was supposed to do? I had just before this been very proud of, hey, my kids are both grown. We've navigated all these challenges, and all of a sudden my life is falling apart. And so it was my focus for a long, long time to try to figure out how to change him. And the bottom line is that what I discovered is that I can't change him, but I can change me. And when I can change me, I can give him actual opportunities to choose recovery if that is what he chooses. And now there's a great big caveat here, because now I work with other parents, mostly moms, some brave dads, and we applaud the dads. And every time there's a dad in the group, I think every other lady in the group wishes that their partner were also in the group. But mostly there are moms. And the work that we do together moves the moms out of despair and into peace and into some greater acceptance of what is happening. It removes the guilt, the responsibility, the shame factors from the mom. And some of the children respond differently when the mom changes. Some of the children choose recovery as a result of the work the mom is doing on herself, but there is no guarantee of that. So no one can choose recovery except the person with this disease. And it is a disease, and that's one of the first things we work on in a very focused way, establishing that this is a disease. It's not a choice that a person makes. And so when I was going through my quest to try to figure out how to fix Eric, I found lots of people who had little things they could say to me that maybe if I heard them differently, I could have applied them. But I didn't really find anything that was step by step by step by step. Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this to get to a better place. And so people kept asking me, other people that know me, other people that have the same challenges kept saying, how can you be peaceful? How can you be accepting of what's going on in your life? How can you travel? How can you do other things while Eric is homeless and wandering the streets and at risk of death? And so I started to ponder how that had happened, and I put together the work that I had done into a step-by-step program. And so The work that I do with parents is action oriented. There's very little of what you'd find in a typical support group, which is verbally sharing on calls, the stories. There's a little bit of that, but mostly it's a very step-by-step process to help each mom move from chaos and fear and turmoil for herself, micro step by micro step to greater peace in her own life by setting transformative boundaries. What did I miss, Lisa, that you wanted me to cover?
Nothing. I'm teary because I hear you.
Very verklempt.
You what?
Verklempt.
Nothing. You're starting perfectly. And at what step did you realize, or who helped you, or what helped you to realize this is about me, not them?
Well, it's kind of a funny story in hindsight, because if I reflect back, from day one, when I started asking professionals and people in the know what I can do to fix Eric, I was being given the message that I needed to stop trying to fix Eric and start trying to work on why I was so focused on trying to change another person. But I was not ready to hear that. And I didn't hear it. I could only see it in hindsight. And there was a psychologist who I knew for years and years and years. My oldest son is ADHD and oppositional defiance. So as a toddler, you can imagine the challenges that brought. And I had a long time relationship with this particular therapist. And though he wasn't treating anybody in the family at the moment, he would take my calls early on in the disease. And often I would call and say, oh my God, this is what's happened now. What do I do? What do I do? And he would talk with me gently and kindly, but always there would be a message that, Barbara, you need to do a different kind of work. And one day when I called him, I could sense something in his voice that made me fear that I would lose access to him. When he said, Barbara, you need to go to see this clinician's office. They run a group on codependency. You need to go to that. And Lisa, my worry was that if I didn't go to that, he was going to stop talking to me. I did not want to go there. I thought, codependency, what the heck is that? I don't need a group of people. I just need somebody to tell me what to do to fix whatever the problem is with Eric. And by the way, could somebody tell me, please, is it schizoaffective? Is it bipolar? Is it personality disorder? Is it drugs? Could you guys all get your act together and tell me what the heck is causing this so we can fix it? That's what I wanted. I didn't want to go sit in a room with a group of other people with similar problems and talk. That was not a solution to me. But I really felt like if I didn't go, he was going to stop talking to me. So I went, and now, when I reflect back on it, it seems to me that I went in a very similar way as Eric went to therapy or AA meetings over the years when somebody forced him to do so. I'm here, my body is here, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to be present, but I'm not going to really engage. And
right, I'm not going to cooperate.
Yeah, I'm here, you made me calm, okay. And that's how I went to that meeting. And after a while, though, things started changing, and the therapist that ran that group is exceptional. And I pushed back on her hard about a lot of things, and she very carefully helped me to learn the things that I needed to learn. And what emerged for me, Lisa, is that it was a discussion. When you go to, and I think 12-step programs are wonderful and help a lot of people, but when you go to Al-Anon or Nar-Anon meetings, if they're run in the way they're supposed to be run, there is no crosstalk. And what that means is if you say what's going on in your life, it's not for me then to say, I had a similar situation and here's what helped.
There we go.
That's what I'm sorry.
I was just going to say good morning to Gary over in Singapore. And
yeah, you're being heard in Singapore this morning.
And Shayna says, once I got closer to turning my attention back to myself, surrender by choice, I find half the battle is with well-meaning people telling me what to do with my adult child. Thanks for throwing a lifeline. There's so many suffering in shame. And hi, Lisa.
Good morning, Shayna. Shayna's an avid listener.
Hi, Shayna.
Obviously being touched by you.
I'll speak to that in just a moment and give you something you might use in that situation. Um, but to complete, the story I was telling, what happened in that group was that crosstalk was allowed and encouraged, and that was what actually went on. So if you, Lisa, were telling your story and me, Barbara, heard something in your story that I thought might be useful to say, I could say it. And so I started being able to do that and being in some small way helpful to other people, but still not connecting it to my own situation. And over time, that crosstalk encouragement, that engagement with other people let things click for me. So I'd be in the shower washing my hair and I'd think, oh, that thing I said to Lisa, that same thing applies to me, duh, dummy,
Wow, look at the self-reflection.
Yeah.
That's what's hard for some people is it is a reflective mirror. When we commingle in similar situations, it's very easy for us to say, well, I see what their problem is. I see what they're doing wrong. But then we have this deflective mirror that says, I'm not looking in it, but here you can. And that does. So when you're done and completing your story, the question, I guess my next question would be is, people, I've defined it on the air before, but I'd like it from your perspective, is define codependency, because people don't realize that they're codependent. They think they're helpful.
Yeah. Okay. So, yes, the reflect, I want to comment on the reflective thing, and then I'm going to go to the comment about people telling you what to do. And then I'm going to go to codependency, if that's
your
okay
show.
with you.
Absolutely.
So as part of the program I put together, I insisted, even though my marketing coaches told me, no, do one-on-one, that it was going to be group, and there was going to be a secret Facebook group. And because there's power in the group, there's power in getting out of the shame. And part of the encouragement I give to students is read what other people are posting in that group. And to the extent that it feels right to you, pick one a day that you're going to give a thoughtful response to. Don't worry about if it's right or wrong. Start to think about somebody else's challenge in this same space and see what shifts for you. And it's a very powerful tool for our students to use. I would like to just offer up a comment to people who try to tell you what to do. If you're open to that, I don't know how to tell if you're open to that, so I'm going to toss it out there. You can take it.
You're very used to me, Barbara. You can just
okay.
Put it out there.
Yeah.
So it is perfectly okay to say to other people that this is a topic that's off limits. One of the strategies I used, I had a very good friend who I would see regularly, and I would tell what was going on in Eric's life, and she would say something like, are you getting him an attorney? And I'd say, no, this is his situation to deal with. And she'd say, oh, poor Eric. And what I wanted was her saying, oh, poor Barbara, having to make that hard decision. And so one of the strategies that I used in that situation was, after thinking about it a while, I said to her, look, I really need some safe spaces in my life where the subject of Eric and his disease is off the table. Will you be that for me? So I very purposefully took it off the table with some people, and with other family members, all of whom seemed to want a blow by blow of everything that was going on, which put me in the position of, number one, having to tell the horrible stuff over and over and over, and number two, having to listen to well-meaning advice. I simply said, I don't want to gossip anymore about my adult kids. You each have a relationship with him. Please reach out to him directly. I'm going to get out of the middle. And so I took myself out of the middle. Does that help at all? Was it Shayna?
Yes. Shayna, did that help?
She'll type it in. We can't wait for her answer.
Okay. So I will move on then. And, I'm really probably not the person to define codependency, but I'll do my best because, thank you, Shayna. I was resistant to the concept of codependency. I pushed back hard and said, but I don't want to live in a world where we're not codependent. I want to rely on other people and have other people rely on me. And gently and over repetition, I came to understand that what I really want is to be interdependent, which is different than codependent. Codependent can be defined in lots of different ways. It's doing something for another person that they are able to or should be able to do for themselves. It's sticking your nose in somebody else's life in a way that's intrusive. It's doing things because you feel like you should. And a lot of the moms I work with are ages, say, 40 to 80. And as women, we grew up, most of us, many of us, some of us grew up thinking that we measure our success as women, as wives, as moms by how much we do for other people in our family. And so when our kids are in this disease, it's very uncomfortable to say no to anything that they ask. And that's codependency. It's doing it because you feel an obligation to do it. It's not being comfortable speaking what is truth for you, which doesn't mean talking about somebody else's life. But for me, I'd like to go back to having a relationship with you as my friend, not talking about X, Y, or Z. So did that help at all, Lisa?
Yes. And because I do think that, and I am not throwing stones at glass houses. For the last 4 years, codependency has been something I have attacked by myself and within myself. And I've found, and I deal in a little bit different aspect of it, but it's a matter of so many internal things of um, anything from wanting to feel good enough, wanting somebody to tell you you were good enough, wanting someone to forgive you for mistakes, wanting someone to finally say, okay, you've suffered enough. Thank you. Now I'm not mad anymore. Seeing people and somebody that I love very much sacrificing their whole health and mental and physical health with this internal need to forgive themselves, but looking for that from outside sources that they feel guilt, or shame around. And all the things in codependency that I discovered, and it's part of it. And I do know you deal with addiction, and that's something that has touched my life more than once. But I also find that that comes in many aspects for people that come from any type of a toxic environment or environment where they didn't feel seen and heard. Um, People who are oversensitive. I'm For those of you who are shocked, I am oversensitive. So I'm
There is,
crying as Barbara's introducing herself like I'm the overmental.
I don't
But there's so
believe
many
that.
reasons for it, and I think that people get confused too because society has labeled addiction drugs and alcohol. But I think there are other addictions that we acquire, and I've talked about it on the show before, that are still addictions.
Well,
Oh, yeah. So there's so many things you said there. First of all, you are not oversensitive. You are the appropriate sensitivity for Lisa. There's no judgment about how sensitive you might be. You are who you are,
Don't you
and
love her?
you are good enough just the way you are. And you're right. I believe everybody, I should never say this, but I believe everybody is codependent to some degree or another. It's a matter of degree. Um, I think you'd be hard pressed to find anybody who is not codependent to some degree or another. So it's a matter of finding what is the degree that's right for you. And we don't, it's not my encouragement ever to say, I'm here, I'm going to leap to here. We want to take micro steps. We want to experiment with what's right in our life because what's right for me may not be what's right for you. And I never tell people what they should do unless the subject is somebody is threatening suicide. On that, I say something very specific. But otherwise, it is to experiment and find the solution that's right for you, what sits right in your soul, with the ability to change your mind anytime you want. Because if you can't change your mind, how can you safely experiment, right?
Right.
sure. And I think, I'm going to go back to what you said earlier, Barbara, is a disease. And I think, I'm 50, I'll be 53 here in a couple months. And when I think of disease, we think of cancer or we think of multiple sclerosis or something like that, oh, you have this disease. And so I have to change myself to learn to help you live with that disease, right? But when it comes to addiction, no matter what the addiction is, we look at that as it's choices and mental, a mental thing. So I need to help change you because you're making wrong choices, and we don't look at it like a disease.
You're exactly right. And that is a great big problem. So I could talk a long time on this, but I'm going to do a short bit. And you tell me what more you need. So I betcha that 90% of the people who are listening to this call have had a drink of alcohol.
Absolutely.
I betcha that a significant number of people on this call have tried a drug of one kind or another, whether it's marijuana or a pain pill or something or other somewhere in their lives. Nobody takes their first drink or their first drug saying, oh, look at me, I'm going to have a beer, I'm going to go down, I'm going to become an alcoholic in life. Or look at me, I'm going to smoke this joint with my friends and I'm going to go down the path of drug addiction. Yeah, I don't care about all those things that you see go on, once you go down this path. That's not going to happen to me. And most of us are making those decisions when we are teenage. And our brains are not developed at that point in time. And so it's the same as people driving too fast. It's the same as people having unprotected sex. Yeah, those things could happen, but they're not going to happen to you. And so everybody on this call takes a drink. And some percentage of the people on this call, their brain changes. And I'm not a medical professional, and so I cringe every time I try to explain this because there are people who do it so much better than I do. But there are changes that go on in the brain that the pleasure receptors. And the way it's been explained to me by somebody who's long time in recovery is that our body, our minds has a built-in mechanism to let us know when we need things that we must have to survive: food, sleep, water, sex to procreate. And signals come out of our brain. Oh, you better eat, you better sleep, you better this, you better that. When you are a person whose brain changes from the use of a substance or from a process addiction, gambling, sex, shopping, eating disorders, internet, whatever you're addicted to, your darn phone, right? Being on your phone all the time. When you are a person where chemical changes happen in your brain sends a signal to your body, same as the signal you need food, you need water, except that food, water, sleep, sex are whispers from your brain, and the need for whatever you're addicted to is a shout. And so, yes, certainly everybody makes a choice to take a drink or a drug, usually at a time where they're not going to believe that this could happen to them. I don't care how well the parent has explained it. And then there are actual changes that happen. You could look up Dr. Nora. If you just Google Dr. Nora, I forget her last name. She has a powerful video on the disease aspects of this. Now, okay, now you're in this place where you have this addiction. Now the situation is the same as if you're in this place and you have cancer. So you have the disease of addiction or you have the disease of cancer. If you have the disease of cancer and you choose not to follow any of the medical or professional recommendations, that is your choice, and you're probably not going to have a very positive outcome. You have the disease of addiction. You get to choose. You're a human being with your own right to choose whether you take the advice of the professionals, the therapists, the doctors, etc., and follow those recommendations. If you choose not to do that, you are most likely not going to recover from the disease of addiction. And so that's where the disease aspects are the same. Where it's different, of course, is that if your disease is cancer, probably your brain is still working properly. If your disease is addiction or any other mind disease, any other mental illness, your brain is fooling you. You see reality differently than I see it. You see reality in a very different way. You're being sent these signals. And so here comes the hard part. The hard part is it's not my fault my son became addicted. It's not his fault he became addicted either. He was one of the unlucky ones who, when he tried these things, he became addicted. Legions of other people tried the same things and didn't become addicted. However, it's not his fault he became addicted. It is his choice what he wants to do with the fact that he is now addicted. The fact that he is now addicted doesn't obligate me as the mother to give away my entire life to do things that fuel that addiction. I can choose to do that, but I have no obligation to do that. That's where the disease aspects make it difficult to differentiate. Did I cover that sufficiently, Kent, or do you have a follow-up?
No, I think you did great. And
Answer,
I just wanted to let everybody know you're listening to 216 The Net. And this is Lisa's Changing Perceptions, brought to you through the financial support of our good friends over at Natural Therapy Wellness Center, www.mchenrymassage.com. Of course, we've got Barbara Decker on with us this morning, and we're very blessed for that. And you can go to her website for more information on what she does and how she does, www.livewellandfully.com, which is just great. Now, Barbara, Shayna says, once I got closer to turning my, wrong one. Sorry, I already read that one. She has another one here.
Yeah, we did that one.
Good if I do my job. I think abject terror keeps convincing me to jump back in. Why does every answer come in some form of minding my own business? How can we deal with the anger, though?
So those are two separate questions. And the first one is easy to answer, hard to understand. Every answer comes in some form of minding your own business because it is only your business that you can mind, Shayna. You have no control over what another person does. You have control over what you do. And you can choose to do as much or as little as is right for you. There's no part about what I teach that says stop doing for your kid. It's whatever is right for you. And it took me many iterations. And so my encouragement always is to stay out of somebody's life, whether that person is addicted or not, unless they invite you in to give an opinion. That's where this codependency thing comes in. So what I try to practice, and I'm not always successful, is somebody is talking to me about something. I might say, are you looking for my input or are you just venting? And so I want to be invited to give an opinion generally. And I'm assuming that by your posting this question in the chat, you are asking for an opinion. So that's why I'm answering it.
I understand it because I've said before, are you needing me to listen or are you wanting my response?
Yeah.
Which one you're looking for. I've even said, are you in the emotional state to accept a response? Because sometimes people have said, you know what? No, I'm not right now. But when I do that, I find that it offers them later on, if you are, I'm open to talking with you about this again. And it kind of takes out the shame factor or the embarrassment factor if they've overvented by saying, no, I'm open to talking about this. When you're ready, I'm still here to talk about this and it's okay. But sometimes we can't. And for those of you who'll be surprised, I'm a little opinionated and outspoken. So on occasion, I overstep and then I must apologize for saying you just needed to be heard. And I'm sorry that I couldn't be that in that moment and that I wasn't that in that moment. Let's do that again if you'd like at any time. Or, just welcoming back. You're always free to have this conversation with me. I'm not offended. I'm not hurt. I'm not angry. You have a sounding board, and I will do my best now to keep in mind that sometimes my mouth needs to be zipped and
So
really need my ears, or my heart actually to hear you and to feel somebody heard you.
So when you're talking about a conversation with a person whose mind is healthy, that's exactly correct. When you're talking about a conversation with a person who has the disease of addiction or another mind disease, be careful. It is my suggestion not to say you're always willing to listen, because a lot of these individuals will take that as permission to spew.
And spit
Uh, yeah. And use you kind of like a verbal punching bag.
Been there.
So, yes. Now, I want to answer the question about what to do about your anger. You are entitled to feel whatever emotions you feel, and anger is certainly one of them. And it's part of the stages of grief. And I know that I had to go through a grieving process, even though Eric was alive. I need to let go of, I was grieving the loss of the son I raised, the loss of the family I expected to have, the loss of the types of gatherings I expected to have. And so I think give yourself permission to feel whatever you're feeling, and then look for strategies that will work for you to do mindfulness work to keep you in the moment, to see, is it physical activity that disperses anger for you? Is it tears? What is it that will help you release some of that anger? Additionally, I think it really helps to understand the disease aspects of this. When a person has one of these diseases, they are coming at you out of the disease lots of times. They are, depending on the pattern of the person, they can be nasty, they can be manipulative, they can be loud and obnoxious, they can be withdrawn, they can, sulk, appear to be very depressed. So that is behavior that's coming out of the disease. And so when you can get to a differentiation of, my child is beneath that disease, this stuff coming at me is coming from the disease. It is not really what my child thinks. My child doesn't hate me. My child doesn't think I'm a terrible mother. It's not my fault that all these things have happened. The things that they are saying are exaggerated or simply not true. And even if they are true, they're irrelevant. By the time the child is grown up, no matter what happened in the past, it's time for them to put on their big boy or big girl pants. We all have challenges in life. We all have things to work through. We all have, if I'm allowed to say it, shit going on. And it's up to us to work through that, not to blame somebody else. And so if your anger is because you're angry at what's coming out of the mouth of the person with the disease, the way to move beyond that, and it's not like you're going to get it out of this one conversation, it's a structured approach, is to get to the point where you really truly understand that it is a disease and not your child who is saying those things to you. I surveyed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in the disease and in recovery, and without exception, they don't really blame their parents. They're not really angry at their parents. All of the crap they say is just the disease trying to get what the disease needs to survive. And they've all learned how to push our buttons and get what they want from us.
For the parents who are starting to see that there's an issue or have seen it for a long time and are getting to, I call it the tipping of the scales, when enough's enough, I need to, life's not going well. And for the parents who are self-sabotaging their own lives, their own health, both mental and physical, with grief, guilt, all those emotional factors that come involved, what would you say, or what do you feel could be some self-reflective questions for a person like that who might be listening, to kind of ask themselves and see, it's okay for me to be happy and healthy. This isn't all my fault. And to start the process, because it is a process. And I get what you're saying, because I have people come to the office and they think in an hour I have the magic thumb and everything's better. And it's like, no, no, it's a process. But to start that process, or to start the self process of, and truthfully, it's self-love, self-care, understanding that you are worthy of a life again, and letting go of those things. What would be some seed planted questions, I guess, I don't know how you want to word it, that would help somebody to start that thought process, to understanding that they're allowed to have a life outside of what their children are choosing?
So that's a tough question to answer, and I'll tell you why. If someone has a child with a mind disease or an addiction, it's more than just becoming clear that they are allowed to have a life outside of what's going on with that child. They also need to figure out what to do with all the chaos that this typically brings into their life. So, number one is yes, they need they need to give themselves permission to have a life again. But number two, they need to figure out how to have a life again.
What does that
Because
mean? Right. What does that
yeah,
look like, I guess?
what does that look like day to day? So it's really easy to say to a person, "Oh, you're worthy. You should have your own life, have your own self-care." And for years when somebody would say to me, "What are you doing for self-care?" I would interpret that to, "Barbara, are you dieting sufficiently and getting enough aerobic exercise?" Which to me is the antithesis of self-care, because I do those things because I'm supposed to, but they certainly aren't what I really want to be doing.
You're not enjoying it as much as you had hoped.
A massage or deep in a novel, that would be real self-care for me. But getting on that treadmill behind me is not, in my definition, self-care. So what we do is we first of all start to understand the disease aspects, which I think is important. And then we try to have a student identify what their own priorities are, come up with 3 priorities for their own life that are within their control. And that's the clincher. Because almost everybody's first priority is, I want my child to be well, which is 0 within your control. And so my encouragement would be to reflect on, if you had the time, what would you do with it? What are your priorities? Would your priority be to focus back on a relationship with a partner, with a parent, with a sibling, with somebody else? Would your priority be to pick back up your crafting or some hobby that you had at a younger age, or to start a new something or other, and to really reflect on what priorities you would like in your life and to get clear on those? And that is an exercise that takes time and review. And then if you're trying to do this solo, yes, meditate, eat better, and started journaling. If those are things, I meditate too, and I eat better. If those are things you enjoy, Lisa, then that's taking care of you. If those are things you feel like you're supposed to do, it's on one level taking care of you. But what I'm talking about are the things that you really, truly want to do that fill you up in some way. This work fills me up. This work that I do fills me up. It gives back to me, right?
We talked about that last week on the show, as far as like the difference between gratitude and grateful. And it has the things that make you feel fulfilled, that make you feel right, that it's that happiness that comes from a calming or a feeling this is who you are, those types of things, versus the forced cliche that for some does work, but for others it doesn't, but they take the steps because that's what they were told to take. But they
Yeah.
don't feel that change within themselves. They don't feel that happy within themselves.
Yeah, your
So it's right
self-care
now,
might be.
we talked about it before the show. There's different things and different people and different situations that each person needs, and they're out there. It's kind of finding what is that for me. What I, in my office and in my life, what I find is that I see people struggle with feeling that it's okay to be happy and enjoy those things when their child is suffering.
That's very true. For me, self-care for a long time meant eat a dish of butter pecan ice cream, and I'm okay with that. That felt
I would
good
have
to
a
me.
similar.
Yeah. So yes. Um,
Girlish figure didn't come from nowhere.
so I'm getting to the point where you feel entitled to enjoy your life while someone else in it is suffering. I really strongly encourage all my students to have therapy going on also. I have therapy going on also. That's not to say that every week of my life I've had therapy, but I've always had a therapist who knows me. And I'm on a 2-week cadence right now because that I've got something I'm trying to process with her. Sometimes I'll go months where I don't, but you need to work through those things with someone who can help you, who can guide you, that's with someone that resonates with you. Find a therapist that you really click with. Uh,
That's very
and
important too, and I'm glad you said that, because I know a lot of people think that because they're a therapist, that they must be the person. If
Nah.
you don't feel safe in a rapport, and when you're not comfortable to be honest and not hide those real things that are coming up in you, that therapy won't do you any good. You're just spending money and an hour of your life, and you're going home and feeling the same way, and in some cases I've seen almost even more resentful, because now you feel like you're wasting your money and your hour of your life, and this person doesn't get it. So it is important to make sure it's somebody who's comfortable. And there's different personality types in different situations and different types of therapists. You might have to try a few until you get one that says, hey, you know what? Yeah, I feel good here. This is where I need to be, or this is where I want to be. So I'm glad you said that, because it's very important that you have a rapport with the person you're talking to, and you feel safe to
You
truly
will.
vent out what it is you're really feeling. Because when we're in this, sometimes what we're feeling is not rational, but that's still okay. That's part of seeing it and figuring it out, putting the pieces out there.
Yeah, and you will know in the first session whether you have a rapport with that person, and you can choose. You get to say, for my therapy, I want to explore all the traumas of my childhood. Or you can say, for my therapy, I don't want to explore all the crap that went on before. I want to focus on what I can do now to get to a better place. Lisa said that she felt guilty at times for being happy while her children were not. And um, I did too, but I don't anymore. And part of how come I don't anymore, and this is the work I do, is very spiritually neutral. But for myself, I got to a place where I accepted that I'm here for a reason unknown to me. Each of my children is here for a reason unknown to me. And the things that they need on their journey are the things they need for reasons unknown to me. And by reminding myself that my greatest growth ever, if I'm honest, came from challenges that I had to navigate myself. Life going smoothly and just the way I wanted it to go really didn't provide me opportunities to grow. Getting fired from a job, that's an opportunity to grow, right?
Right.
So adversity serves a purpose.
And how much of that were you, I guess I don't know how to word this, were you surprised at how much of that was more self-reflective of things you didn't even see or really? One of the terms I
Yeah.
use when I'm dealing with people in the offices, and they come in and they're very deflective and blaming, if this person would just do this, I'd be happy. And if this person, and I, at the right opportunity with some guidance, usually ask, I understand, I can see where that's hurtful, and what role did you play in that? And it's always kind of the, oh, what do you mean? Well, there's a balance in any relationship, of any relationship dynamic. So the only way change is going to happen is when change happens. And if you're the one recognizing the problem, are you willing to recognize your role? Because you're the only one who can make the choice to change the dynamic. And that brings up another problem or struggle that I see, is that when there's a family dynamic that has been, whatever word you want to use for it, toxic, dysfunctional, dramatic, whatever it is, for a significant period of time, is that when one person within the dynamic starts to grow and heal and change and become healthy, the rest of them, all on occasion or significant percentage, kind of start to attack, because it changes that function that everybody's become comfortable with, even if it's not healthy.
Yeah. So lots of times when mom starts to change, the addicted child will start to change. I've had parents tell me their kid has said, "What's going on with you? You've just joined a cult." Or, honest to goodness. Or, "Who are you? What have you done with my mom?" Or, "They're brainwashing you. You're not." So, um, yes, other people will see this and shift in response. And it becomes it becomes your job to decide the level of relationship you have with anybody in your life. So if you become healthier, and find that people around you are not responding positively to that, you have a choice to make. And that choice starts with seeing the truth of what's going on, not what you want to go on, the truth of who that other person is. Once you see the truth of the person who's not changing while you're changing and who is responding negatively, now you get to decide whether you value that relationship enough to change what you're doing. So you see the truth. Now you decide, do I want that person in my life? Am I willing to shift to try to accommodate that person? What am I willing to do? So you get to make those judgments.
Prioritize and revalue things.
You can change the level of involvement you have with that person. You can decide, and this was a real example that from one of my students. Yes, I want that person in my life, but only to the extent that we're going to go walking every morning, because that's a good thing. But then more of that person is just too hard for me to have around. So you get to choose, keep that person or not. And if you want to keep them, like Lisa said, what can you do to make that relationship work? You're not going to change the other person. You can only change yourself.
There you go. Of course, if you want to know more about what Barbara does and how she does it, please jump out to her website at www.livewellandfully.com. Of course, if you have questions, you can put them here in the comment, email them in to Lisa's Changing Perceptions or to us here at 216annette@gmail.com. Gmail.com, and just put in Lisa's Changing Perceptions in the subject line, and we'll make sure that it gets to Barbara, and or Lisa will take care of it for sure. But yeah, it's a great website out there, and wherever you are on this journey, the guide will help. It says it right there on the screen, but www.livewellandfully.com.
And then Barbara, I have another question, because it's something I've run into more than once in my life, and your definition of the addict versus the child being separate, the addiction, the disease, I guess, being separate from the child, is, have you found or have you seen, because I've seen it, that as the parent, so in your situation, as you were becoming healthy and setting boundaries and realizing how important those boundaries were versus enabling, or I know I've read a lot of your things and watched a lot of your videos, you said feeding the addiction with the enabling, you're actually feeding it and encouraging it. Have you found that as you became healthy that there is a manipulation and a guilt and a things because the addiction, the disease, needs you to stay the enabler, needs you to stay that person? So because I see it all the time, did you find there was a combativeness in the beginning where it was like, no, this can't change because the disease needs you to keep feeding it? So guilt and manipulation and things like that occurred that kept you at a place, or attempted to, obviously you've succeeded in your self-reflection, but that would keep somebody in a place of feeling they didn't have another option than to carry this.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I do the work that I do, because everything that's out there tells you what you should do. Don't enable, set up boundaries, but very little actually helps you figure out how to do things like that. And so, yeah, and so think about it. Our kids learned how to manipulate us from little on up. Now they're in the disease, and it's a much stronger, more powerful thing that they're doing. But they learned what buttons to push from little on up. And we have trained them up well. We've taught them what will get them what they want from us. Each of us have taught our kids that, whatever it is, with us. So don't expect that the first time you say, hey, there's a new mom in town, I'm not going to respond in that way, that they're just going to say, oh, I understand, Mom. Thank you for doing that self-reflection. I love you. You're a good person. Such a great mom. That's not what happens. You got to be anchored in yourself and say, I'm doing what's right for me, and have an exit strategy. So if you're saying no to something that you said yes to, do it in a time and a place and a way where you can do it briefly and with grace, and exit.
Yeah. And of course,
When
as Lisa Hebner said, it's really hard to be a mother sometimes. This course and what you do, Barbara, is tailored really to mothers. Now it works for everybody, but you kind of resonate, and well, so you are a mother, so you know and have walked in those shoes. So if you're a mom out there listening, if you're a mom out there watching, anything of that nature, and you have questions, Barbara is incredible at what she does.
And we're down to 5 minutes, and I could talk to you all day long. I could do an all day show with you. We're down to 5 minutes. So, just real quick, unless there's something that you know is more important because you've done this before, please then do that. Um, if somebody were to contact you and want to join, your groups and what you do, can you give a quick what does that look like? What does that entail so that people would know what to expect and maybe feel more comfortable as they're clicking the button, as to what they're going to be
yeah.
expecting?
So there is a link at the top of my webpage. I don't know if Ken can show it that says workshop. If somebody wants to see exactly what we do, click on that workshop link. You will register there for a 1 hour pre-recorded workshop that is on demand. You see where it says workshop? There you go. That is on demand. And that is me talking about my VIP program and then sharing a clip from inside my VIP program where I'm working with students. And then at the end, telling exactly what my VIP program is and what it involves. And so there are a number of options for people who want to do this kind of work. The VIP is the one I recommend for anybody who um, finds it to be affordable. There are other options, and there's an option that comes without my support. We have, a Facebook group, and we have progress coaching calls every week, and I do a coach-a-thon once a month. But there's a program that comes without that is less expensive, and that resonates with people either who want the less expensive or with people who are mired in, I don't want anybody else to know that I have this problem in my life. I want to be completely private. I don't want to interact with anybody else. And so start with that workshop. And when you start with the workshop, all the tech behind the scenes will start to send you emails about the various options and how you can do this work if you want. And for people who choose to, there are free options as well. Just read the emails and look at the blogs and do what you can with it.
Nice.
Perfect. So you do have different levels of options. Everybody, we're down to about two or 3 minutes here. If you have a question, please pop it in the chat. And if not, Ken's let you know how you can reach us. Please visit Barbara's website. She's fabulous. I think she offers something. And just Barbara, so that you know, I called some of my therapist friends this morning and counselor friends this morning and said, I know you don't always listen to the show, but you better this morning because I felt that you might be a good thing for them to offer to some of the people that they work with as well as another alternative, because I find a lot of times is that people think that there's help for something and it's a one-hit wonder, that you find one thing and that must be it, and if that doesn't work then too bad. And sometimes it's that mixture that causes the full picture to kind of unveil for you, versus saying, well, I go to therapy, that's enough. Maybe it's not enough for somebody. Maybe then the group really helps give me insight to help me talk at the therapy, or whatever it should be. And commingling multiple things together can really show you a big broader picture. If we only stare at one thing in life, then we don't get too far, but too much experience. But when we mix and mingle things around, we get really kind of a colorful blend, and it can help us see things a little bit differently. So just so that you know, there's counselors and therapists listening to this morning. I said, you have to. I know you don't all the time. I know you're my friend, but you have to. And they're
Yeah,
listening this morning to share your site. So I thank you for what you do. I thank you
thank
for
you.
being an incredible, strong mother, wonderful mother, loving mother who loved her child enough to love herself. Because that's kind of the point I try and argue with people. Is like, I have somebody in my life who has said regularly, how do I save my children? By saving yourself, by giving them the view of possibility and hope, by showing them that when their light bulb goes on, if their light bulb goes on, what better person to come to for support than somebody who's lived it, somebody who's been it. Because a lot of the people that I deal with, not just one, but a lot of people I deal with that are dealing with children in addiction, are people who had come from addiction or been with an addiction in the family and then cleared themselves. And now they're dealing with the backlash, so to speak, of what that was. And it's such a true thing that you were strong enough. And I realize you didn't start that way, but there are a lot that do, to say, you know what? I can save my children by loving myself, by seeing I call it on the show, seeing my own bullshit, seeing my own things that are
You
causing
know,
it, my role that I played in it, you know.
I would like to say that your child may choose to be saved or not when you change. However, I have never seen a child choose to move toward recovery while mom was still giving him everything the disease needed.
Strong.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
it.
you.
All right.
You know?
Such a beautiful thing. I thank you for coming on. I am offering you right here in front of 700,000 people. Anytime you would like to come on again, you just throw me an email or a phone call and say, "Hey, Lisa, I'm kind of in the mood to come talk again," and you
Okay.
are always welcome here.
Thank you very
Absolutely,
much.
always welcome here. So you have an open invitation. So we're down to 30 seconds. Anything you want to share in that 30 seconds, Barbara? The show is yours.
Nope, I think I just said what I needed to say. There are no guarantees that your child will get better. I can promise you that if you do the kind of work we're talking about, your life will improve. I have never had a mom do the work whose life didn't improve. I have had moms say, I'm going to pay the money and not do the work and then wonder why their life didn't improve. But it's not like
The magic thumb. I call that the magic thumb theory. Wait, she fixed me. She was supposed to just fix me if I wrote this check.
that doesn't happen. It is actually a little bit of work.
Yeah, there's actually some hard stuff in there too.
We could talk all day. We can't. Join us now for Fellowship of Faith
Thank
Worship
you.
Hour.
Thank
And
you.
back
Bye
for
bye.
Metaphysical Meanderings. Thanks, folks.
Open invitation anytime, Barbara. Have a great day.